And thanks for being with us. Now, the draft Firearms Control Amendment Bill, which was published in the Government Gazette last week, continues to draw mixed reactions from various concerned parties. The draft bill, which has already received over 17,000 written submissions, partly aims to remove self-defense as a reason for applying for a firearm, amongst other things. Now, the Police Ministry says it is encouraged by the public's participation in the process and has assured the public that it is not meant to disarm citizens, but will instead assist in preventing the death of hundreds of women in the hands of their abusers inside their own homes. But the proposed amendments have become somewhat of a sore point for some civil rights groups and some citizens, with those who are vehemently opposed to it already resorting to an online petition. Police Minister Bheki Cele joins us now to talk about this a little bit more. Minister, good morning. Thanks for being with us here on Morning Live.
Morning, Sakina. Morning, Leanne. Morning, all the viewers.
Minister, let's start with the rationale behind the amendments. What is the overarching reason for the amendments to this particular bill?
Again, good morning. Usually when you go for amendments, it starts with the research, with the research team that will inform why you need to change. This research has been done by South Africa, the police, and other bodies. And we have discovered that the countries that don't give the right to the individuals to own firearms have a less violent crime against their own citizens, including women. There are quite several of those countries. The nearest one to us would be Botswana, Japan, and some other countries. So we are informed by that the firearms that they leave their shops legal, they are on the way converted to illegality, and they cause trouble. But even when they remain legal, they cause a lot of trouble. When you look at figures that I might give as we go forward, more people are killed and injured by legal firearms in the hands of the owners, even more than those that are out there illegal.
So in that regard, the explanation leans more towards incidents, as you've just pointed out, incidents that happen in households, sometimes in business premises, and says that the possession of a firearm can lead to increased victimization for both the gun owner and those living in the household. It also talks about the potential decrease in femicides in households if these amendments go through. Is that, though, the biggest motivation for this proposed amendment? Because I'm wondering whether there is actually, Minister, a correlation between gun ownership rates and the rates of violent crime in South Africa.
Yes, it is part of the motivation, but also it's a part of the world, international trends in other countries, where there is more restriction in terms of personal ownership. There is less violent crime. The point you're making is correct. The research tells us that 75% of legal firearms still injure and kill mostly women. Maybe let me put these figures there. Between the year 2000 and 2014, 155,000 guns, 676 of them moved from being legal to be illegal. 19,000 of them were never reported that were stolen, have gone in the illegal market. But the year 2019-2020, 566 guns were used, those were illegal firearms, were used to murder, injure, attempted murder people. But 1,334 were legal, that were in the legal hands, that were used to injure, mostly those would be women. So it doesn't stop. the violence against the gun that is legal. Actually, we found them to be more lethal, more violent than those that are out there. So if you reduce these guns, you are reducing the violence against the ordinary citizens out there.
And just looking at some of the amendments proposed here, Minister, and just to read a bit from it, it says the Constitution, as you say in the Act, does not give us the right to bear arms. The Firearms Control Act in its current form also grants no such right to citizens either. So owning a gun in this country remains a privilege, and it actually says this in the amendments, and it's made possible through the Firearms Controls Act. But this begs a few questions. So why was this granted then, this privilege granted in the first instance? And why has it been revoked now? And in the second instance, does the Constitution then also not protect the individual's right to own a firearm?
Well, it's a question of history. Maybe Sakina will talk about that history in the other time, because those guns, even as you speak, they are in the hands of some section of South Africans, not necessarily all South Africans. And there are things that, as you look, you just wonder how they were allowed. For instance, in South Africa, the Firearm Control Act has allowed you, of which you are working on it, to have an unlimited number of firearms in your house. If it is you and your son, you can have a lot of armory. That's one thing that we are putting in there to reduce those at least maximum 8. We're not sure. We have requested South Africans to speak if that 8 is not even the more number that you need to have, because I don't know, why do you have to have 8 firearms in your house? So the question you are asking is a question that we are trying to correct, not because it had happened before, it can't be corrected, but more than that, there are more firearms that they move from being legal to the illegal firearms and causing trouble, causing violence, while you are not able to control them once they become illegal.
So in terms of the Constitution protecting the individual's right to own a gun, I ask this because of the reasons for actually owning a firearm, and many people being concerned that self-defense may no longer be a reason.
Well, South African Constitution, as you correctly said, does not give that guarantee of a right. Even the Act, as it stands at the present moment, does not give you a right. It gives you the privilege. That includes the Constitutional Court decision last year in terms of the present Firearm Act that says South Africans don't have the right, they have the privilege. So to say we're taking rights out, those rights have never been there. It has been the privilege, and we want to keep it that way in South Africa. But there are other elements, Sakina, that are quite important that are not looked at the bill. One of them is the one that I have raised of reducing the firearm of unlimited to a limited number. One important one that, again, people they overlook for whatever reason is that says if there is a court order against me, even if I have that firearm, I have the right, that court order instructs that the gun must be removed from me, because which means that gun is a danger to the person that I have received the court order against. So these guns, so long they are in the hands of those individuals uncontrolled out there, they cause problem, whether they are legal or illegal. So it goes on to protect those that are vulnerable. Sakina, when you look at the murders and the rapes, they happen mostly in the houses of the people they know, of the people that the victims know, either neighbors, either in their own houses, which means most of these guns, they don't do what people they claim they protect. Actually, they cause violence against the vulnerable people in those houses.
But, Minister, I think you will agree and you will understand that the reason why South Africans feel like they should have a firearm is to protect themselves, even though, the factors that you mentioned, notwithstanding, do exist. People feel that they are under siege in this country, and therefore they want to have a fighting chance should they become the victims of crime, which incidence is very high. And the Bill of Rights actually guarantees every citizen in this country the right to be free from all forms of violence from either public or private sources, to quote the Constitution. But we know that very often people feel that law enforcement fails them in this country, the police in the first instance, then more generally, the law enforcement, the system overall. So how do you respond to that, Minister, when people say we are not safe, we want a fighting chance?
Yes, that is exactly what we're trying to do, to close that tab that causes that kind of that kind of giving the criminals, even those that are not criminals, an extra edge to be violent. We believe that with less firearms in the hands of individual citizens in South Africa, there will be a less violent crime. Indeed, we are putting it correctly to say the state will have to improve in protecting the people. The part of it is to say you can't have the guns that you are using not to protect, not in self-defense, but to harm and injure. Out of 1,334 firearms that have been used either to injure or kill ordinary citizens, most of them women, only 25 of them were from the state agencies. More than all others, they're from individual South Africans, which means they have no capacity of carrying that and make sure that they remain safe, and those guns, they protect rather than they injure. Yes, the state will have to up the game in protection, including reducing the firearms in both the hands of irresponsible, because if we have 1,334 firearms that have been used that are legal, which means there are quite many people that are irresponsible that are not supposed to carry those firearms.
So does the state have an indication, does it have an estimate, or does it know for certain how many firearms there actually are in circulation in South Africa at the moment, even if it's just a rough guesstimate, and how many of those are actually legally owned and how many are not?
There are quite millions of legal firearms, Sakina, that are out there. Unfortunately, those are same million legal firearms that are converted to be illegal. As I've given you the figure that between 2000 and 2014, 155,676 of them were converted from being legal to illegal. Unfortunately, 19,000 were not even reported to be out there. So you can't guarantee that the firearms that have given legal remain legal there. In the process, they are converted to be illegal and cause trouble and become untraceable once they are legal. Yes, there are several millions of them that are legal, but as I've said, no guarantee that at any given time they can't be converted to be illegal.
So obviously this is an attempt to actually control, an appropriate way to control guns in our society. But the question is, how do you go about convincing the South African public, Minister, that the police will actually ensure their safety? Because I think that is the crux of the matter. We look at what happened, the rise of incidents of vigilantism, even anecdotally so. The situation in Zandspruit about a week ago, where 8 young men died, one is still in hospital. And there again, the community taking the law into their own hands because they feel they've been failed, they've been let down by the police in this instance. And this is borne out by some of the statistics where you yourself have said that that police precinct needs to step up its game. It needs to look at the cold cases in that police precinct around Honeydew. But how do you assure South Africans that they can actually rely on the South African police services to keep them safe? Because this is the crux of the matter, Minister.
Maybe let's start with the point you raised. South Africans have an opportunity of making presentation. I heard you talking about 17,000 submissions. We have 60,000 already submissions, Sakina, 60,000 already. South Africans saying their piece. There would be those that they want the guns to be given to individuals. There are some that say it's correct. No, there are those that just put the insults out there. So until the end of June, there is that opportunity. So we'll sit down, we're listening. We are not rigid to say this will happen. We still have an ear for South Africans speaking. Let South Africans speak and sit down and we engage with South Africa. The second one, Zandspruit per se. What is not said, while we fully agree, I went to that station, is one station, by the way, that tops crime in the Republic of South Africa, the Honeydew. But what is not said there is that the criminality, I address the community, I'm going back to address the community. And I said to the community, they've given the space, they've allowed the criminals there parading as the community leaders to take over and cause trouble there. There were elected leaders there, like your chair of your CPF, like the chair of the patrollers. But there was a name of one man that the police are still chasing. That is absolutely not known. Who completely took control of the situation, literally going house to house, taking these children, these boys out of their parents and all that. So it's a question of police working together with the community and the community becoming responsible themselves rather than allowing the criminals to parade as leaders when they know that they are fulfilling their own things, like opening the space for themselves for the drugs and all those things. So it's not just fixing the policing, of which we are doing, the Provincial Commission is working on it, but it's also working with the community, of which we have agreed to say, close the space, don't allow criminals to parade as the leaders, not elected, nobody known, to come and take over and cause the havoc that they cause at Zandspruit.
Fair point, Minister. All the same, this happens because communities have lost faith in the police to enforce law and order in their communities. And secondly, you did say that you were instituting an investigation there in terms of why the police took so long to respond. So have you gathered any more information as to what happened there?
We are going there, I think it's 2 weeks now, it was 3 weeks, to go and report, give the report to the community exactly what happened. Sakina, there were police that did even more than that of not responding. Some, they came there and they stood by when the people were killed there. So it's a question of police and the question of community that we need to go there and correct. Yes, there is information that is coming, but that information will be put in the community as we go for the community meeting in 2 weeks' time from now.
So any police officers charged for dereliction of duty or any other charge with regard to their non-performance on that particular evening?
The Provincial Commissioner is working on that. The full report will be given, and we expect some heads to roll because clearly there was a dereliction of duty. There were people that were supposed to have done their duty and they did not do. And then the management of the South African Police will have to respond to that.
Minister, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your time. Police Minister Bheki Cele talking to us about the Firearms Control Amendment Bill of 2021. The ministry says it has seen an outpouring of inputs. Now, as the minister indicated, more than 60,000 written submissions have already been received. This within a week after the bill was published in the Government Gazette on Friday last week. Shows you how important this matter is to South Africans. So you still have until the end of June to get your submissions in as well. Right now, though, it's just after 7, time for the news.